Hello beautiful people and welcome back to the latest episode of my vlog. This week I'm talking about a subject that's been a matter of curiosity for me for a wee while now, and that is what makes a star. Now, I'm one of those people that 100% believes that stars are made, they're forged, they're not born. I don't think there's something intrinsic about them. Um, I know it happens quite often once we see someone and once they've reached that status, we sort of attribute some sort of mystical quality to them, like they're a star. They were always a star. They were always going to become a star, and you could just see it in the way they talked and walked, and you have all those stories. But I don't believe that's true. I think there's a bunch of factors that go into it, and once you see the finished product, it's quite easy to be like, well, they're just special, and just ignore all the work and all the other factors that play into this. So I've made a list, and I thought, why not get into that and do a little analysis on what I think makes a star. So let's get the obvious out of the way. Looks, right? Now, uh, if you look at the biggest stars in the world, you could say that they're probably good looking in one way or another. Now, why I say one way or another is because you can be a star in different circles and different genres, and your looks might be ideal for that specific genre, but you might not be a star in everything else. And I think that's just normal. Um, Also, looks are relative, they're subjective. You can be, you could probably say the biggest stars are people that could be considered attractive by the most number of people, or that, that helps in becoming one of the biggest stars, but that's not necessarily like it's not like an underlying condition that you have to have. Plus, you can't really help it, So it's just something to be aware of, and I think it's sort of a fascinating element that plays into this. But I don't think anyone should, look at themselves in the mirror and be like, "Well, I'm just not that good looking. I give up." No, no, no. You're cool. We cool. It's just it's one of those fascinating things, how physical perception does color and does help your path, towards stardom. Um, Wrote down promotion. Yes, the second thing is obviously, are you promoted the right way? Does the machine get behind you? Which is again a very uh, interesting and moving part of this whole equation. Um, you can't have a star without promotion. Okay, you can have some of the greatest skills, the greatest talents. If people can't hear of you, if people don't hear of you or see you, no one's gonna care. So promotion is one of the fundamentals of this business, and it is pretty fascinating because people always think about your skills, your talents, and those are really good, but promotion create like work leads to promotion. Promotion leads to more work leads to more experience, which leads to increasing your skills, which leads to more promotion, and on the cycle goes. So I think the very basic underlying fundamental of it all is skills, but promotion is right next to it, and it feeds into it, and they just they work in tandem. So that's something to be very much aware of. Even when you look at the stars that you look up to or you idolize, even just be aware that there is a massive machine invested and involved in creating those stars and that image. Wrote down skill. Now that is pretty obvious. Most of the stars that we know have some sort of skill. They're good at something. Whether now, if some people are stars because they have a skill in a specific field, they're really good actors, they're really good athletes, they're really good engineers, whatever. Or they're just really good communicators, or they know how to keep people's attention. They're good entertainers. Now, you might not find it entertaining for you, and that makes sense. I don't find everything entertaining, and neither should anybody else. That said, for the audience that watches them, they have that very specific skill that they deliver on consistently, which is incredibly important. Consistency is probably the key right next to, just high level of skill, because the more you practice something, the better you get at it, the more you will develop your skills. But also, we all know those people that like they're really good at something, but you just can't rely on them. So there's no reason for you to keep going back and watching them. Every now and again, they'll put out something. You're like, oh, that's really cool. I wish they did something more with it, you know? So yeah, I think that comes under skill. Again, there's an element of subjectivity to it, which I've mentioned before. Of you might have some of the most amazing skills, and I do not care at all, or vice versa. And that's just again probably it goes back to the looks part, but probably the biggest stars are the people whose skills affect the most number of people. Now you might not want to be one of those people. You might not want to, be the biggest star in the world. And there's an element of luck involved as well, because if you don't have the interests of the majority, you're not going to be one of those biggest stars. You're going to be a massive star in your own field, in your own genre. So that's there's that element of luck to keep in mind as well. Charisma. Now this is where stuff gets a bit more interesting, because I'm a great believer in charisma, which I think plays into your ability to communicate. And people say, charisma is not something that can be taught, and it's very magical, and it's the it factor. You just can't explain it. You have it or you don't, darling. But I actually think you can. I've been I know myself, I've become a lot more at ease with myself over time, and because of that, I've become slightly more charismatic. Now, not for everyone, and that's fair dues, but I have received, comments with some workshops and stuff of like, oh, you're very charismatic. And I'm like, well, I haven't changed that much since years ago when I wasn't that charismatic. I've just become a lot more at ease with myself and a lot more comfortable in my own skin, and just a bit more okay with not being liked by many people or all people or just other people, And that, interestingly, that sort of comfort and sort of relaxed feeling in your own skin plays into it massively. So anyone setting out on this journey, I do recommend that they have a good word with themselves and look in the mirror and start learning how to be okay in themselves. Just because it helps. Like, it is kind of a cheat code, I'm not gonna lie, but I just know the way people have been treating me, the more comfortable I get with myself, it's just changed. People are more receptive, they're more friendly, they're happier to be around me, which is, I'm kind of the same guy I was before, but I give off a different energy, and it works. I recommend it to everyone. Just get comfy in your own skin, but don't get comfy so other people will like you, because then you're still trying to please other people. Get comfy for you. It feels great, and then just enjoy whatever comes your way afterwards. There is another thing, obviously, with charisma where we also associate being interesting, which again is a bit subjective. You might be interesting in your own field and somebody else will not care at all. And there's something else here that I put sort of next to charisma, but it is a different thing, which is relatability. In this day and age, I think we want two things from our stars. We want them to be amazing and blow our minds, but we want them to be people and relatable at the same time, but not too relatable, because then they become common. It's a very fine line that we put on our stars, which kind of tickles me a little bit. Be a star, but don't be too much of a star, but don't be too down to earth either. I don't think that's fundamentally necessary. I think if you're willing to, be yourself and communicate well, whatever your thing is to the masses, you're on the right track, basically. But it's just something to keep in mind, the different mind games we play with ourselves when it comes to other people that we consider stars, and the different expectations we have of them, The final thing I've wrote down is willingness to be exposed. Now, the reason I wrote this down is because, again, many times we associate some sort of innate ability, something special, and just not everybody has it, with stars. If I could do that, if I could just stand out there in front of people. Now, you might not enjoy standing out there in front of people, but you can take the step of exposing yourself to the public. Not physically. I mean at a psychological way. So once you take that role of standing in front of people, you're fundamentally exposed with all your flaws, all your warts and all. So there's a chance that you will receive sometimes positive, we're on the internet, many times negative and useless feedback. That happens, okay? I'm not saying it's the majority. I think most people just want to, give their thoughts, but you can action many of it, and a lot of it, or it's just the amount of it that stands out as just negative trolling is there, and you have to be aware of that. But I think it's there is something very simple, but also not revolutionary. That's a big word for this. Just something special or just rare in the one's willingness to say, here I am. I'm daring to be, criticized, and I will try to manage this as much as I can, but I will, stand in front of the people and do my thing. And whatever happens, happens. And I think people do resonate with it, interestingly. Like, the more somebody does it, the easier it becomes. But the more people be like, well, maybe they do have something. Funnily enough, once you start going like, yeah, actually, I've got something to say, some people will pick up on that and be like, yeah, maybe he does. Let's listen to him for a while. Now, you might lose people's interest anyway, because the stuff you're saying is not for them. But that simple act of standing out, I think, is just, I don't know, it's just something, I don't know, it's just intriguing about such a simple thing being such a massive part of this industry. Just, here I am. So yeah, those are the things I wrote down, and most of those are actionable. Promotion you can do, skills you can develop, charisma you can learn how to become more comfortable in your own skin, and you can become more interesting by living an interesting life. And the willingness to be exposed. You can take that step. Now, if you don't enjoy it, if you don't want to do it, that's understandable. You don't have to, but it's something that you can if you so choose. So I think these are the main things I could think of and I wrote down. Let me know in the comments if you think there's something else that goes into being a star or just making a star. I'm curious. This is actually kind of interesting debate. So let me know your thoughts and I'll see you on the next one.